Does anyone else feel like it's really important that other people like them? Because I felt that way a ton, like my whole life. In fact, I remember being in 5th grade and being like, I have to be funny, otherwise no one's gonna like me. Oh my goodness. I think most people, and when I say most people, like 99.99% of people really want to be likable. Part of me knew that like that's normal, and another part of me thought, does it really matter? Like, it shouldn't matter if others like us, right? Like, we should be able to be ourselves, be kind and good, and then people will either like us or they won't, but we shouldn't put our whole worth on that. However, I was talking to a friend one time, and I always like itch my nose during these. I think it's like a nervous a nervous tick or something, because it's not even itchy. But I was talking to a friend one time, and they had said that they thought it was important to be likable. It was one of their values. They really cared about how other people perceive them, and they kind of argued more on the side of like you should try to be likable than the side of like be yourself. But obviously there's somewhere in between that people could fall that would be a little better, right? However, because I had talked to my friend about this, it really got me thinking. And then I was reading Little Women, which is my favorite book. Thank you, Louisa May Alcott. And in Little Women, there are a few characters that go through phases of wanting to be liked by others. Amy, the youngest, really advocates for how you present yourself in society, tries to convince her sister Jo, who doesn't care at all about how you present yourself in society, that it actually does matter. Anyway, I love Amy's story. I love her transformation. There's so much that goes on with her that I don't have time to describe, but I did use it to help inspire me, to get me thinking, to help me create this blog post that I'm going to read to all of y'all today. This blog was posted January 29th, 2022. Blog title: Does it matter if we're likable? Strangers stared at me in the face. They seemed like nice girls who had fun roommates and a lot of friends. I knew none of them, and I barely knew the boy who had dragged me into the apartment to meet his roommate, who happened to be at the girl's apartment. Yet I had agreed to play a game called Chameleon with all of them. In the game, one person secretly played the chameleon role and had to pretend they were just an ordinary player. The chameleon would lie and hope people believed them. If they blended in with those around them, they succeeded. So as we played, the stranger stared at me and accused, "I think you're the chameleon." Like all the other rounds, I told them the truth. It wasn't me. They never believed that, but the boy who brought me along? Oh, it was him, of course. And no one ever guessed it. They liked him too much to believe he would be the chameleon. At the time, I barely knew the boy. Then later, he became my husband. Over our time together, I watched the dynamic repeat itself with strangers and friends. Nearly every time we played a game similar to Chameleon, the players suspected me. Sure, it's been me before, but most of the time, I'm just another player. Yet people have a hard time believing that. Comparatively, my husband would rarely get accused, and if someone suspected him, they often quickly lose that suspicion. Some might say that he came across as a trustworthy man. That's true, but that's not all. In large part, I believe that happened because he was also a likable person. In my worst moments, I assumed it was because he was so likable that I must be so unlikable. I would cry on his shoulder and wonder what quality made me this way. Eventually, the tears stopped coming, and I realized that I was only just having a hard time, that I'm not truly unlikable. I mean, these are just games, right? Although these moments added with the others outside of game nights have led me to wonder, does it matter if I'm likable? Yes, No. Well, I couldn't tell. Of course, I wanted to be likable. Having lots of people like me did not seem horrible, although I had many lectures from my school years ingrained in my mind. Lectures that instructed one not to care about what others thought, to be themselves, to not conform to the expectations of peers, and follow the crowd. I remember talking to Joshua about this. He told me how he spent his whole life working at becoming likable. He said it took effort because he needed to learn how to adapt to others' needs and how to assess various social situations. In the process, though, he said he never changed himself. He said that he held the same standards and values and he never pretended that he didn't. Somehow, he managed to become likable and stay himself. I thought about this concept multiple times as if my mind was running laps on a track and trying to see new scenery at the same time. Finally, I stopped running. A few ideas started to appear. I started to practice a few social manners, and I felt that I finally understood things once I read Little Women. In a way, Little Women discusses the importance of being likable, but it uses a better word: amiable. While being likable includes the necessity of another person liking you, being amiable does not. Both mean that one is pleasant and friendly, but the amiable quality drops that extra social qualification. It might seem that they mean the same, but that's not surprising since people tend to like those who are pleasant and friendly. Both characteristics tend to have the same outcome. This helped me to relinquish my worries. Did I still want to be likable? Sure. Did I need to be likable? No. If I only strived for that, I would be aiming for something I could not control and certainly could not ensure. Simply, no one can make another person like them. I'm sure some people do their best to, and some people might have a strong influence that has led them to believe they have this control. But when it comes down to it, we don't, and we shouldn't try to change that because we simply can't. Instead, we can work on how to treat others. I found that trying to become amiable has become a much more worthy pursuit than trying to become likable. It removes stress that comes from lack of control. It helps me become more selfless as I focus on acting friendly toward others, and I focus on this change all while staying true to the things I value. As a result, I've noticed that I have an easier time relating to others, and even though I'm not trying to achieve this, it seems that people like me more than before. So don't worry about becoming likable. That tends to lead an overly self-focused lifestyle that aims to change what one cannot control. Can you see why the consequences might become negative? Instead of trying to become likable, consider trying to increase your amiability. This leads to a more selfless lifestyle that aims to act kindly toward others. Naturally, this consequently leads to more happiness as we learn how to interact in a friendly, sociable manner to one another. For many, this whole concept might seem impossible. I'm sure some people who read this have social anxiety, or perhaps some feel this breaches their realm of comfort. Some might even try this and feel as though they failed. It seemed the person did not like me, even though I acted so kindly. That's okay. We all have different capabilities. Becoming more amiable does not mean becoming the most friendly, kind, outgoing, pleasant person in the world. Rather, it just means we put in the effort into smiling a second longer, waving hi when we want to look away, and continuing a conversation when we could let it falter. We may not always do these things consistently, but we can do them more. With a world where people try to do a little more of all of that, I think we'd all have brighter, better days. Yeah, probably. So, I don't really have much to add on to that, except that I have been the person who avoids eye contact in the hallways, on the streets, whatever, wherever. I've been the person who goes into a classroom and just focuses on the schoolwork and doesn't try to talk or make conversation with the person next to me before, during, or after. I have been the person who just stays in their box and, feels a little uncomfortable getting outside of it because they're concerned, what if they don't like me? Or yeah, honestly, that was always my main concern. I know there are so many other reasons people can feel that, but can you see that I was working against myself? However, when I just thought about being kind to others and reaching out, um, I didn't have to worry about whether or not they liked me because I wasn't concerned about myself. I just wanted to make sure that I made someone's day better. And yeah, I mean, like, it's hard not to like someone that is trying to help you have a better day. And of course, that makes me happy because they're happy and then we're all happy. It's a win, 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 win. Oh, I love the word amiable. In fact, I want to read you the definitions. I thought this might be a little overkill to include the definitions in my blog post. I kind of allude to them ish. But according to Google, who gets their definitions from Oxford Languages, to be likable is, especially if a person, to be pleasant, friendly, and easy to like. Okay. To be amiable is having or displaying a friendly and pleasant manner. It's more about what you're giving than about what you're receiving, if that makes sense. Can we be amiable even all the time? No. Please don't think that. We cannot even be amiable all the time. But I would argue that if we're gonna be something between likable and amiable, it would be better for us to strive to be amiable. I really, really, really hope you guys have a good day. Not just saying that to get likes or subscribes. I hope that's clear by now, considering the views. But I really do love you guys. I love that we have this time together. And yeah, comment down below if you have anything to add on to what I say or any thoughts of your own. Always super love to hear what others have to say. So I will see you next time. Goodbye. Goodbye. Au revoir.